Wake up. Wake up. It's a Friday. That's right. We got a lot to get to. Niner news, what you thought of the draft, ex-GMs weighing in. Let's go.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. It's not just a distress signal. It's where we are. It is May 1st, which sounds good. Like we're moving right along here. But Larry, it's going to be a long summer. I'm ready to play some meaningful football right now. And we are long, long ways away from anything that even looks like meaningful football. But the team is starting to assemble. Obviously, we're coming out of the draft. Everybody's got their evaluation. And what's interesting, and I know what we're starting with today here on Wake Up, and welcome everybody. It's great to have you here. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. So thank you very much to them for being our sponsor today and throughout the upcoming NFL season. But Larry, Scott McCloughan has gone ahead and weighed in, and him being a respected GM and talent evaluator is one thing. Him being the former 49er general manager is another thing. This guy was in the room as the Seattle Seahawks built their Legion of Boom. He was in the room when, the then Redskins, now Commanders, were starting to turn the corner and become a better franchise. So lots of interesting stuff from McCloughan, who was talking on Rich Eisen about this draft class. And I guess we should start with his opinion on DeJon Stribling, who he thinks was drafted right where he should have been.
Well, yeah, it is an interesting thing. He goes on, Matt Barrows does every year does a sit down with Scott McCloughan. And McCloughan's a former Niner executive who's 55 at this point. He was the Niners top evaluator from 2005 through 2009. And, it's not like it's like he's the perfect evaluator. I mean, This guy had misses as well. He drafted Jason Hill in the third round. He drafted Brandon Williams in the third round. So it's not like he's all knowing. But Matt always goes and asks him, "Hey, what do you think of the Niners draft?" A real scout. And a lot of times he's like, "Well, I haven't seen all these guys." This time he had only seen two guys, DeJon Stribling and Kalen Black. So we'll start with Stribling, and Scott said some interesting stuff. He says that he thinks that Stribling has the makings of being a starting wide receiver, capable of taking over from Mike Evans at the boundary X position one day. He said, I liked him quite a bit, to tell you the truth. This is in a phone interview on Wednesday. He said, some people didn't, and I don't understand why. Because he's got size, he's got speed, he's got good ball skills, and he made plays. I don't understand why they're questioning the pick. So, so then he goes on and discusses more of Stribling. He said, I'd take Stribling in a heartbeat over Omar Cooper because Stribling can run. Cooper is not a speed player at all. He's like a Deebo Samuel. He's just bulk up a little bit and do the dirty work. Stribling can do either or. He can go outside and go vertical. You better hold on because he can run. So McCloughan had a 2.1 grade on Stribling, Damon, which means he had him to go in the first third of the second round, which he did. He went in the first pick of the second round. He says he likes Stribling, the fact that Stribling is big, fast, 4.36 speed, well-rounded as a blocker. He says, I don't know the person, and I don't know the medical and all that kind of crud, but just from the standpoint of a football player, what I saw on tape, the guy's going to be a starter in the NFL. He's a big kid too now. He's tall. He's got length. He's got a good catch radius. He's pretty cool. And then McCloughan finished up by saying he wouldn't play Stribling out of the slot because he's not that fluid in and out of the breaks. Instead, he'd line him up outside opposite Evans initially and then give him a shot eventually taking over for Evans at the X spot. And then McCloughan's last comment was, he's a flyer. I'd put him outside and let him rock and roll. So he likes him.
And that is probably the right way to do it, especially, I feel like if you're in the slot, you have to be a route technician. You have to seriously break off your routes crisply for Shanahan to even want to play you out there. So the straight line speed, I will say this, though. If you go ahead and you look at Stribling, who played for 3 other schools, if you go ahead and you look at him before he got to Ole Miss, he runs a lot of intermediate routes that Ole Miss really didn't have him run. So it's like you almost watch a different player. You almost get another game tape. of somebody who almost doesn't remind you of the guy that you just watched in an Ole Miss uniform when you look at him playing in different systems. I think that benefited him. I think that that's one of the reasons why the 49ers were interested. But as far as Scott McCloughan saying he doesn't know why people had such a negative reaction, well, come on, Scott. Let me explain it to you. People weren't prepared. People weren't prepared to hear that name. I wasn't prepared to hear that name. And the last time we heard a name that we were so unprepared to hear, you got A.J. Jenkins out of this team. There have been a few reaches.
The disease of NFL fans thinking they know. They don't know. And here's the thing. Back, as recently as maybe a decade ago, people just knew they didn't know.
Right. Well, look, we don't know necessily either, right? We're just trying to inform people. We're trying to inform people.
I'll say this. I spent a lot of time watching film throughout the year. So I know of all these guys before we get to the draft process. As far as I'm aware of them, I'm aware of where they are in this process. As far as deep dives on every single, prospect, I mean, only the people whose jobs are to look at, 1,000 players, look at all 1,000 players. But my point is just that the rank and file NFL fan feels like because they watch the entire game, they know what they're watching, but they really don't. And because they watched, Path to the Draft, they know all about the draft, but they really don't.
Right.
There's lots and lots of people that are putting out stuff with certainty about prospects that they had not heard of like 3 weeks prior. And I don't tell me it doesn't exist. It exists all the time. I can prove it to you. I can go find you 5 49er super fans that think of themselves as professional evaluators. I can show you their Twitter. I can show you their timeline. They didn't mention Deshaun Stribling in September. They didn't mention him in October. They didn't mention him in November. They didn't mention him in December. They didn't mention him during bowl season. They didn't mention him in the fourth quarter after he had the big catches against Georgia in the national semi. They didn't mention him at all. And maybe a few mentioned him, between after the season was already over when they're reading their draft guide and the draft. But hardly anybody really studied him. So to say that everybody knew,
right. Look at it this way. You and I do wake ups on Mondays and Fridays, and we go about an hour and a half usually. Let's just call it, for the sake of argument, we do 3 hours a week together. And in leading up, in the 10 weeks to the draft or whatever, that's 30 hours of you and I doing wake up. I am certain that we did not use the name Deshaun Stribling once. We did not discuss him once. So again, people were unprepared. People were unprepared for the name. And when you're not prepared, when something surprises you, it's very natural to have like a negative reaction to it just because you weren't prepared for it. We prepared for all these other contingencies. But that's what
you're an idiot. If you don't know what you're talking about, and then somebody says a name that you don't know and you have a negative reaction, you're just an idiot.
Well, welcome to the world, dude. The world is
I'm just saying the talk of like, oh my God, I hadn't heard of Stribling, so he sucks. If that's your deduction reasoning, you're a fool.
Right. Without a doubt. But everyone thinks that they're an expert. We have people who literally sit online, Google one symptom, and then talk as if they are, medical school graduates. We got a world full of doctors. We got a world full of NFL GMs.
It's a great thing. It's a great
thing. And it, and their look is the argument. And I won't put it on anybody for making this argument. Then when you look at what the 49ers needed day one, do they need another wide receiver to add to this group, which again may have underperformed, but there are already bodies in the room? Or do you need that starting safety, the starting guard? And it felt like once again, the needs got ignored, or at least weren't addressed until later on. So I understand the negative reaction. The world's full of negative reactions these days, but I don't think
everybody wanted not everybody wanted a wide receiver in the first round. Kyle Shanahan wanted a wide receiver in the first round, but a lot of people didn't want a wide receiver in the first round. A lot of people wanted the 49ers. They saw that their offensive line got gutted in the Seattle game and wanted more strength coming up front. I don't know what your buttons you're pressing, but I'm getting reverb and coming back, and I don't know what happened here, but now I'm hearing myself coming back. But yeah, not I mean, I don't it wasn't like, oh, they took Stribling and they didn't take Denzel Boston. Denzel Boston, I didn't even run a 40. I didn't want any part of Denzel Boston. The it really was more. And Omar Cooper, I told you before the draft, Omar Cooper ran 4.42, 4.46. He doesn't play to that speed. I didn't see that speed when I watched him. So the Niners had, problems because they needed a blocker, they needed a vertical threat, and this was the guy that fit their need. But what I just am sick of, I guess, is I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this. We're going best player available. No, you're not. You're not going best player available. You're going with somebody who fits your exact, intricate, and elaborate series of needs. We need a wide receiver who can also block, who's also a good guy, who also can stretch the field, who also can line up here. And, they had a bunch of boxes. And this is how you wind up screwing up the draft as you go into it. And you don't say, hey, you know what? I don't know who we're going to take. We're going to see what value's there. They don't have that approach. They're like, we are tied in. I heard it yesterday when Kyle Shanahan spoke to Rich Eisen. He's like, we really wanted Kalen Black, and it was a really thin wide running back draft. Well, it's like, if it's a really thin running back draft, why are you going for a running back so early if it's such a thin draft? Once again, are you playing best player available? No, you're not playing best player available. You can say in the pre-draft presser, we're going to go best player available, but when you reach for a back at 90, and then your explanation to Rich Eisen is it was not a good running back field, well, then why are you drafting a running back in the third round? Why are you pushing for a running back in the third round if it's a bad running back field? Well, so it's like also, things like that
why are you ignoring your own history, that your instincts have led you to a disappointing player more often than not when you reach at the position of running back than they have led you to a player that you trust and you actually use. So it feels like, they keep on stepping into the same booby trap over and over. Now, one of them will hopefully be X marks the spot. And I guess this brings us to Kalen Black, who you and I are both, high on. We like him an awful lot. I think he is going to really fit what the Niners do, what the Niners need, what Shanahan demands from his running back. I saw this today, just looking at a little, just prepping for today's show. The 49ers just drafted the oldest draft class in the NFL. If one of the themes of the last few years is we got to get younger, they did not get younger even in their draft class. They drafted one of the oldest group of players in the draft.
Once again, if I can jump in here, this is what happens when you give your coaches an inordinate amount of control. Coaches never want to draft the better talent down the road because they're thinking my ass is fucking fired before that guy ever evolves. So they want role players and guys that can fit holes right now and make them better in week 1 in September. And they will trade the long-term vision and the long-term upside of a superior prospect for immediate help to save their own bacon, to save their own job. These are good jobs and they pay well. And these guys want these jobs and they'll keep these jobs and they'll do anything to keep these jobs, including taking worse players that fill needs at positions of need in the present. This is why there is a GM, right? Otherwise, the coach, but the Niners defer to their coaching staff and their head coach, so they're thinking immediate. We have no needs. They deluded themselves into thinking not that long ago, we have no needs. We're going to take Jake Moody because we don't have any needs. How does that look right now as Seattle and the Rams have gone right on by you, as you're one of the oldest teams in football, as your window is closing, and you told yourself and deluded yourself into thinking you had no needs, so you took a kicker. So they're just not doing it well, and they're winning in spite of their success. And listening to Shanahan yesterday with Rich Eisen, Rich Eisen, what a fucking kiss ass that guy is. Oh my God. He just he's like, it looks like you got a lot of Mike Mayocks and Daniel Jeremiah's in your, so now you're ripping the fans, Rich, because the Niners have been the ones who have been totally inefficient drafting. The Niners are the ones that have reached and reached and reached and reached and have basically one player left from their first 3 rounds between 20 and 23. And so Rich can get on there, glad hand Shanahan all he wants, suck up to him, pat him on the back, try to make it look like Grant Cohn and any other person that questions the Niners is fucking high, but the results are the results, and you can't run from them.
I saw Dave Lombardi a couple days ago tweet, the 49ers have drafted well on the aggregate under John Lynch. They've also consistently acquired good players through trade and free agency. Credit to the GM. San Francisco has good rosters annually. Anyone still pushing selective nonsense is either desperate for social media clicks or a casual. No, I don't think so. I mean, and I like Dave. I do. I like Dave an awful lot.
Can you read that one more time, Damon? Read that one more time.
Yeah. The 49ers have drafted well on the aggregate under John Lynch. They also consistently acquired good players through trade and free agency avenues. Credit to GM. San Francisco has had good rosters annually. Anyone still pushing selective nonsense is either desperate for social media clicks or a casual. I mean, what I would say to Dave is that, look, I would agree with you. The Niners are a middle of the road drafting team. They're not god-awful at it, as some people want to claim they are. They're not god-awful at it. They do find diamonds in the rough. What they don't find is, the pick of the litter when they go, every night. You can get a great dog if you get to the pound late, but you don't get the pick of the litter. And they consistently miss on the pick of the litter. And what I would say to Dave is, if they're this good, in spite of the average drafting record, imagine what just a little bit better would have gotten them by now. I do believe Shanahan has a Super Bowl with better drafting policy, with better drafting habits. I think he's already got his championship, and he's not still pursuing it this many years into his career. Now, whether that is on Shanahan or John Lynch, I mean, we can debate that until the cows come home. Who's really got the final say on all these guys, especially the premium picks? What's the deal there? We can talk about that. We'll probably never really know. They'll never actually tell us because, victory has 1,000 fathers and defeat is an orphan. Nobody wants to claim, I talked us into Trey Lance. That was my pick.
It really doesn't matter. I mean, if they want to, if you want to stand shoulder to shoulder, stand shoulder to shoulder, but guess what? You'll be blamed shoulder to shoulder. So I don't want to, when we blame Shanahan, I don't want to hear it's not him. When we blame Lynch, I don't want to hear it's not him. When we blame the scouts, I don't want to hear it's not them. When we blame the coaches, I don't want to hear it's not them. It's all of them. They all wear it. Now, in reality, what Dave said there is partially true. What is the bottom line? Some people would say the bottom line is the success they've had. Some people would say the bottom line is the rosters they've produced. I kind of agree with Dave. I think overall their rosters have been pretty good. I think overall they're if you said who's the best team in the NFL in the last decade? Well, it's not the Niners, but it's probably the Chiefs. And then if it's not the Chiefs, it's maybe the Eagles. But then right after the Chiefs and Eagles, it probably is the Niners.
The Niners are in that conversation. The Ravens and Bills would find themselves in that conversation without a championship, but that's it.
So they're on the short list. So is being consistently competitive the bottom line? Is having I think I will call it, let's say, top third rosters. I don't know if they've had the best roster, but whatever. They've had a top. I will agree with Dave. They've had a top tier roster. They've had a top tier roster almost every year through. They've been competitive. They've been in the playoff. They've won 10 plus games 3 out of the last 4 years. Is that the bottom line, or is there inefficiency drafting the bottom line and they're winning in spite of it? And now Warren Sharp says they're winning in spite of it. My only complaint with Warren Sharp's entire breakdown had nothing to do with any of it, other than the fact that he blames it all on Lynch.
Right, he's assigning one-man blame.
Yeah, come on. You don't think whatever the position coaches were of the guys that they picked, all probably had a say. I'm not saying that Lynch is absolved of all blame. He's the freaking general manager. But what I'm saying is you got to know your structure. And it's like Kyle Shanahan was hired. And then he hired John Lynch as his hand-picked general manager. Kyle Shanahan makes 3, 4, 5 times what Lynch makes. He is the central figure in the 49er organization. I don't think anybody would debate that at all. Anybody. So how you can hold John Lynch's feet to the fire on drafting and not ever reference that Kyle Shanahan probably talked him into most of those offensive swings and misses. And let's be honest, the worst swings and misses for the most part are on offense. Dante Pettis, Jalen Hurd, CJ Beathard in the third round, Joe Williams. We can go on, chapter and verse. There's defensive misses, but there's more offensive misses.
And it's the position that Kyle played. It's the position that Kyle covets the most. Running back, wide receiver. This is literally your wheelhouse. This is the red heat map of your strike zone, Kyle, and you continue to swing and a miss.
It's a bullying move, though. It's a bullying move because, you know what? If you rip Kyle Shanahan, guess what? People are going to come and rip your ass. But if everybody's ripping Lynch and you dig up some stats and see that the Niners have reached for some players and you write this scathing piece on Lynch, nobody's really going to come rip you. But if you rip Shanahan,
here's the deal.
It was bullying behavior by Warren Sharp. I didn't care for that because it's like, dude, you're supposed to be all encompassing. You took the time to count the draft spots over what they were expected compared to where they took the players. So you had plenty of time to do all this analysis, and you didn't do any on Shanahan. Might be, I don't know, behind some of these picks. I mean, it takes a little balls to say the emperor has no clothes. It's really easy to say, oh, the guy that everybody's picking on, yeah, by the way, he sucks.
None of these are part-time jobs. When you think about what is one of the most, hour years of your life sucking jobs in the world, NFL head coach is one of them. NFL head coaches, have more nights probably spent on the couch in their office than in the bed with their wives. This is a full-time job that is all-consuming. And Kyle, when he was talking to Rich Eisen, basically said, I am so busy coaching throughout the year and game prepping and honing the knife that I don't have time to really lean in and see these guys until after the year, and then I dive deep into everybody's reel.
Right. And then he said, if I don't love his thing is I start with the highlight reels. It's funny because lots of people are always ripping people who start with highlight reels. The guy who's making the pick starts with a freaking highlight reel.
Right.
So,
and here's the thing.
And he starts with his reasoning. His reasoning is that he starts with the highlight reel, and then if he does, his reasoning is that if I don't like the guy's highlights, I'm not going to like his lowlights. So basically, he said, "Hey, if I don't like his highlights, I'm on to the next guy."
I understand it. I get it. If you came to the dealership to buy a Jaguar and you don't see any Jaguars on the lot, you're not going to stick around very long. I get it. I really do. But what it seems that Kyle doesn't understand is that this is not a part-time job. You can't just dip into the drafting process a couple of months ahead of the time because it feels like teams are their drafting process is a 365-day operation. And it just feels a little bit too after the fact when it comes to this team. These are not part-time jobs. Being an NFL head coach is like having 2 full-time jobs. Being a general manager is a full-time job in itself. If you want to be both, well, now you've got 3 full-time jobs basically, and you're going to drown in information. You're going to miss things. No one can be everywhere at all times, and there just aren't enough hours in the day to go over everything. Everyone. They're undrafted free agents. There's a few that we like this year. There's a few that we like every year. You're a draft gooner, Larry. You love everyone who wasn't drafted. You look at guys,
not everyone,
from East Bethesda Baptist University that I didn't even know was a college, and you're like, check this linebacker out, and I'm like, I am not going to check that linebacker out. I've never even fucking heard of that school. So, but that's why I love you. It's why I love doing shows. It's why you're so successful. It's why we're all, we love doing stuff with you. You're obsessed by this. Could you imagine if you had to go and be a house for this? Could you imagine if you were a head chef somewhere and tried to do this? You'd never get to the East Bethesda Baptist East-West Shrine game. But GMs need to do that.
This is the problem of this is the Niners' problem in a nutshell. They have a problem. Here is the problem. They haven't won the fucking Super Bowl. That's a problem. In 30 fucking years. That's a problem. All right? That is their problem. Maybe Jed doesn't see it as a problem. Maybe it's not a problem to Jed. Jed seems pretty fucking happy. Jed seems pretty fucking, wealthy. He seems pretty set. He was cool if they lost to the Lions at home in the NFC title game.
Then
Eddie D, bottom line, it's going down. We're winning this thing, or it's not. This is the way it's going down. They don't have that at the top of the masthead, and they're pretty satisfied. They're pretty happy. The problem is this. They've empowered Kyle Shanahan. He is the dominant football person in their organization. Nobody knows more football than him. And because of it, nobody's going to challenge him. Nobody's going to say, Kyle, that's crazy. And I don't know if it's all him, but I mean, they got a lot of different heads there. Who's got the final say? And if anybody has the final say, it's Kyle. And I think Kyle's feel for drafting is just okay. So your main guy who has the final say, his general feel is just okay. And so you're getting hits and you're getting misses. And I mentioned this the other day on a stream. I'll mention it again. You go to Vegas, you're playing cards, and some moron is sitting on third base, and he gets, a 17, and the dealer's got a 3 showing, and he's like, I'll hit. He hits on 17 with a 3 showing, and everybody's like, what the fuck? And he gets a 4, and he gets 21. He's like, oh,
I told you, I knew
it. So that guy was right on that hand, but that guy just cost himself thousands of dollars. Why? Because he just did a fundamentally flawed move that he's going to repeat over and over again because it worked. Well, that's the Niners. They took George Kittle in the 5th round, and suddenly it's like, hey, look, Kyle's got this unbelievable eye for talent. And then all of a sudden, that Kittle pick resulted in all these other. Here comes Dante Pettis. He's got to have this guy. He's got to have Joe Williams. He's got to C.J. Beathard, trade up in the 3rd round. Why?
Look, I want to go back to what you said about, let's say everybody is comfortable with the level of business and value of the 49ers, and that is more of the X marks the spot of then winning the Super Bowl. Well, then why wouldn't Kyle have the druthers to make the bigger investment in the future draft pick, the bigger talent pick, instead of the win right now for me player? If he has this level of almost indefinite job security, why not then behave that you have that? And it feels like the instincts and the direction and the way that they go about doing things, like they don't quite walk all hand in hand with each other. Like, if I thought I could get away with murder, I'd murder.
Kyle Shanahan has his football wife in John Lynch. Unfortunately, he doesn't have his draft guru wife. Yes. He's got his face of the franchise. John is a wonderful face of the franchise. He's probably the best face of the franchise that any team has in the entire league. Heck, he has more credibility than Roger Goodell. John Lynch could be the commissioner of the NFL. He would be a more popular commissioner than Goodell. In John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan has his his football wife. But what he doesn't have is he doesn't have his personnel guru wife. He needs his Howie Roseman. He needs his nerdy, yeah, you know what? Kyle just listens to this guy, and this guy's always fucking right. We need that guy. Now, can we find that guy? Can Jed massage everybody's massive ego and squeeze a really good talent evaluator into the building and give that person some voice and some control while giving Kyle a raise, while giving John a raise, while not having them, Damon, in any way lose football face? Can they somehow bring in a talent evaluator that's kick-ass without having their premier guys lose face? If they can't, if they can't, the whole thing's going to implode, and I'll give it maybe 5-6 years. If they can, they're going to win championships, and this is going to be a dynasty at some juncture. I think everything is on the line, and it's up to Jed to get all of the pieces in the right areas, and he's close, but he's not there yet.
Let's bring this back to a topic that you and I know even more than football, and that's sports talk radio and being sports talk radio hosts. And I am very good at evaluating sports talk radio shows. I can hear what a lot of people cannot hear. I can hear talented hosts. I can also hear bad producing. I know when this is a weak producer. This show has a soft producer who doesn't understand how to steer the hosts, how to book the guests, how to cut the highlight. This is the problem isn't who's on the air. The problem is the support behind them. The problem is a board op who doesn't run a tight board. I can hear that. And the casual fan, just the listener driving home from work, does not listen to the radio the same way that you and I do. Just doesn't happen.
I think you could probably cut off that last part.
What?
Like, they don't listen to the radio.
No, well, there's a little element of that for sure. And thanks for everyone being here, watching us on YouTube. And thank you for watching Wake Up. Please like and subscribe. By the way, I'm putting up exclusive content now on TikTok. I wasn't a TikTok guy before now. Follow me on TikTok, please. But look, the reason why TikTok is kind of going well for me now, Larry, is because I'm working with a young guy who's a talented young producer who knows trends, who knows what is a winning formula. And all of a sudden, I'm doing well over there, and we're going to try to monetize it now. I just wish the 49ers, who have two very talented hosts in Shanahan and Lynch, would just squeeze in a better producer, a Baba Booey, to sort of just be like, look, I love both of you guys. I just want to make you better. And I'm going to come up with some draft suggestions that I don't want you to just roll your eyes at or say, we'll consider it. Like, this is kind of the direction we should be going in, guys.
Don't fire anybody, hire somebody.
Yes.
You don't need to fire anybody. You just need to hire somebody and get everybody in their right roles.
The reason why everyone is a little bit crazy around the 49ers is there's just enough success to make you think that the end of the rainbow is around the corner, but there's just enough failure for you to say, well, we need to reevaluate how we're doing things at all times. And, it's funny. I got to give credit. I was watching, I saw it on Twitter, our pal, the Butcher Boy, Joe Shasky. He lost his mind
in a rant. I love Butcher. Butch is one of my favorite guys.
He cares, man. He cares. And basically what he said was, stop telling me how to be a 49ers fan. I want a Super Bowl. I don't care whose feelings get hurt on the way to the Super Bowl. This is what we're dying for. This is what we're waiting for. And I don't have to just sit here and nod along and go like, yeah, it's all fine all the time. Because there are elements of this that aren't fine. And there are other elements of this franchise that are more than fine, that are literally the model standard of what you'd want in a franchise. The Niners are an amalgamation of outstanding coaching, very good players, all things considered, good ownership, and the ability to come up short over and over in premium rounds where you find the difference-making players that are the difference between winning season and playoffs and NFC title game and actual champions. It is a lot harder. It's a lot harder to go from good to great than it is from bad to good.
You can go it your own way. I mean, it's funny. I was watching Mayoko and Jennifer Lee Chan and on NBC Sports Bay Area, and they're like, the 49ers have their own board, and they don't care what anybody outside their building has to say. They're not. They're 0 for 12 in the first 3 rounds of the draft over a 4 draft span. Maybe their way ain't the way. Man, maybe we don't listen to nobody. Maybe that's fucking stupid. Has anybody asked that question? When you only have Jair Brown to show for the first 2 days of your drafting over a 4 draft period, I don't know about you, Damon, but in the personnel world, that's a goddamn crisis. You're 0 for 12 in the first 2 rounds of the draft over 4 drafts. That's not, stop being so bold about we're doing it our way. And Burger King's doing it their way too. How's it going for them? What are we talking about here? In the face of facts, if you want to say, hey, we do it our way and that's the way we do it, fine. But in the face of factual data that shows that you fucked it up, then what?
Well, when
I drive this way to work every single day, and nobody's going to tell me a shortcut. Okay, fine. Then who cares? You're going to do it your way. It doesn't mean your way's right.
The NFL draft isn't a conversation that you just have with yourself. The conversation is being had with 31 other NFL teams in 8-minute increments, live and in real time.
There's a market.
You have to know what other teams are doing. You have to know what the instincts are of other teams. You have to then tailor what you're doing around what other teams are doing as well. Think about it as a golfer. Let's say you're a golfer, right? You're an incredibly aggressive golfer.
I am a golfer. I'm a very, very talented golfer.
Sort of. I am always pulling out that fairway wood on a par 5. I am always looking to get on green in 2. And that may be great for you while you're just golfing on a Sunday. Now you're golfing in a tournament and you have a 4-stroke lead with 3 holes to play. It's time to be a little less aggressive. It's time to do it less your way.
Phil Mickelson, are you listening?
And play the fucking board. Play the leaderboard. Look at what is happening around you and tailor your level of aggression to relate it to the Niners draft picks as to what is actually happening around you. Now, if you're saying we really think that DeJean Stribling was off the board at 40, okay.
It's not even people. I hate this conversation because this is a stupid fucking conversation. It's not about did they take DeJean Stribling too high. It's did they need a receiver as opposed to an offensive lineman? I went to Seattle. I watched Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams kick Jake Brendel's ass.
Blew his back out.
And now we have to watch this for another year. Now you're going to come back with, you know what? Connor Colby, Jake Brendel, and Don Pooney are good enough inside. If the Niners can't run against Seattle this year, my God, it's not like we didn't have any foreshadowing or any indications of that this was a problem. They couldn't run against them last year. If they can't block their duo ups inside this year, I mean, that is my biggest complaint about the draft. It's not that they want Stribling over Chris Bell or Stribling over Jeremy Bernard or Stribling over Denzel. I don't care. That's fine. You like Stribling? Fine. I got no problem with Stribling. The bigger argument was, why not Chase Besantis? Why not the power left guard that can stand up to Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy? You got gutted up front, and you didn't even try to run forward on 4th and 1. You did some gimmicky sideline bullshit, and obviously you don't believe in Brendel's ability to move the Seattle defensive front. Otherwise, you'd run in the A-gaps. You didn't even try to run in the A-gaps. You didn't even think about running in the A-gaps. And it's like, here we are. draft time, and you got a chance to bulk up on your offensive line. Your fans are demanding it, screaming for it, and you're like, nah, nope. We'll get our O lineman later, and guess what? You're going to wind up starting most likely kind of a mediocre interior. It's not going to be one of the NFL's more powerful interiors, and I hope I'm wrong, but I mean, last year you couldn't block this duo. Those guys are getting better. You've got older guys that are getting worse. I don't know, man. I mean, Jake Brendel at 33 is going to be better than Jake Brendel at 32. I mean, there's no logic in that.
All I can tell you is last year, the one thing it's hard to get every single fan to agree 100% on something. I think we all agree, 100% of us, whether you're a fan of the Niners, love the show, hate the show, love me or Larry, or hate us both, whatever. The one thing we can all agree on is the 49ers wide receivers last year were a collection of not good enough. And even with the not good enough wide receivers, this team passed for 244.5 yards per game, which is the 5th best passing offense in football. The 5th best passing offense in football with guys, just guys playing wide receiver. Not a group that you would want, not a group that you'd want from a fantasy standpoint. They're just, all of them need to be better. Nobody's creating separation, and you're still 5th in the league in passing. You got to get better on your offensive line. You don't need a wide receiver selected in the first round or, first pick of the second round. In the first and a half round.
They fell in love. They targeted a wide receiver that was going to fall to them in the third round, and then they fell so in love with him that they were like, they took him in the second round. Right. That's basically what happened. And they liked Stribling. They wanted Stribling. They centered on Stribling, and then they went and got him. I mean, I don't have a real, this one here, Kenny Powers. Krug did like the draft picks. We're having two separate discussions. I have no problem with this draft outside of I would have loved to have seen them go offensive line earlier than receiver, because I thought it was a great day 3 receiver draft. And I think there's going to be receivers that went on day 3 that are going to be very comparable to Stribling in the NFL. And I'm on record as saying that. So I would have gone offensive line earlier because I thought the depth on the O-line wasn't as great. And I would have gone for one of those blue chip offensive linemen. But I have no problem with their draft this year.
I like the players, not the process.
I don't have a problem even with I like Kalon Black, so I don't have a problem reaching for Kalon Black. I don't mind the Stribling profile. I don't mind reaching for Stribling. My issues have nothing to do with the 2026 NFL draft. Someone's like, Krug, you were kissing their ass on draft night. First of all, on draft night, I was there on Thursday night. They made 2 trades back and drafted nobody.
So I thought they played the first round very well.
Yeah,
they didn't come with a player, but I liked their strategy.
Who didn't like the first the day 1? They waited to see if Ione most likely fell to them. The Penn State guard, it didn't happen. They traded back. They traded back twice. I actually said in the pregame and in a video prior to the draft, hey, you know what? I'd like to see them trade back, not once, but twice. So they actually did exactly what I wanted to see them do on day 1. And I don't really have a problem with a lot of their picks. Didn't love the double O-line pick, when to me that seems like a throwaway. You're not going to have 5 new backup offensive linemen most likely. So either your free agents are getting cut or your draft picks are getting cut. And I thought there was guys that could make the team. Whatever. I don't really have a problem with the 26 draft. My problem is, as I just stated there, is the ineptitude in 2020, 21, 22, and 23. And those drafts, which we can evaluate. The draft that just happened, we can't evaluate that thing really with any definitiveness. We can tell you what we think, and we can tell you what we hope, we can tell you what we suspect, but we don't know, right? It's going to take some time. It's going to take 2-3 years. But guess what? It's come home to roost on 20 and 21 and 22 and 23. And it's not like the Niners really kicked ass in 2017 in that draft either. They got Kittle late, but they whiffed badly early. So they haven't been a great drafting team. So why would a team that hasn't been a great drafting team be so bold And so, like, hey, man, we're doing it our way. Get off of our ass. We're doing it well. It's like, no, no, no. You're winning in spite of the fact that you're doing it shitty. And you're not doing it well, and you're reaching for guys left and right. You're not getting value. You're repeating picks over and over after you fail. You're duplicating picks in the same draft because you really don't know. So here comes Sermon, here comes Elijah Mitchell, here comes Carver Willis, but here comes the kid from Kansas. It's like you're duplicating picks because you're just kind of throwing stuff up against the wall and seeing how many of them stick. And I get it; it's part of the personnel game. But that's my bigger issue. My bigger issue is the drafts that we absolutely can evaluate, the past drafts, they've gotten their asses kicked. So all I'm saying is, according to Tariq Ahmad, they spend a lot of time doing self-scout and self-analysis. What are you doing with this analysis after you get it? You're reading it and then throwing it in a waste paper basket and doing it whatever the hell you damn well please? Or are you reacting to it? I'd like to hear that. I mean, that one begged a follow-up. You've missed a ton of picks on day 1 and day 2. What did your self-evaluation tell you about these effed up picks? And what have you done to change things? I mean, that is the obvious and obvious follow-up that needs to be asked. Unfortunately, they didn't announce that these guys were going to be down there. Otherwise, I would have gone down and sat in that presser and asked a couple questions myself. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. I didn't get to ask questions to these guys. But I mean, it begged a follow-up. I mean, you say you do all kinds of self-analysis. Where's the self-analysis? Where's the reaction to the failure? I'd love to know.
We can go round and round and round and round and round on this, and we have. God bless it. We have discussed this before it happened. We have, done the dissection after it's happened. We will see. We will see what this draft class bears. Hopefully they have an offensive line that makes everything on the football field better, even though they did not prioritize it once again. Hopefully maybe the free agents that they added to this offensive line will really rise to the challenge, and that's where it came from. And if you really believe that happened, why are you double dipping late in the draft for tackles who might not even be NFL tackles? But again, it doesn't feel like all of their decisions fit together. Like, you might be able to defend any of them individually, but when you look at the collection and how it's all built together, it gets harder to defend. Let's move on though, Larry. And what I do want you to do is think about Prize Picks. We got like NBA games tonight. You want to get some Prize Picks. Are we going to do a lineup together? Are we going to talk about how my lineup, even though I had 2 Knicks and more on both the Knicks, and the Knicks had a blowout game, neither guy hit their point, rebound, assist totals? Drove me nuts, I swear to God. I hope I'm a better Prize Pick endorser than I have been a player. I have not cashed a ticket in 2 weeks. I've not been good in that regard, but hopefully I'm a good endorser. I'm having fun, that's for sure. I never wager anything I can't afford to lose. But
let me say this: the Krug Show is presented by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app.
Wake up is.
Prize Picks is super simple. You just pick more or less on player stats or even game outcomes and build your lineup. It's available in most states, including California. If you haven't checked it out yet, use code HMA. When you play $5, you get $50 in lineups instantly. Also, thank you as well to Habbas Law. Thanks to Habbas Law for being a great sponsor of the Krug Show. We're big fans of Habbas Law. They do an amazing job as a sponsor of the Krug Show, and they're very tied to the community. So I really appreciate Habbas Law. Habbas Law's got an event going on right now. Lowriders taking over Cinco de Mayo. Join Habbas Law on this Sunday, May 3rd, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. East San Jose, King and Story. They'll have chrome gleaming, hydraulics bouncing starting at 10 a.m. It's the Cinco de Mayo parade with live music, incredible food, and a community alive with pride presented by Omar Habbas, Tarek Habbas, and the Habbas Law team with council member Peter Ortiz and the United Lowrider Council. Pull up with your crew for Lowriders. It's Sunday, May 3rd. Habbas Law, East Side Pride. Let's ride.
Let me
So
tell you,
thank you.
we had a jump show, a bounce show, all these cars with the hydraulics a couple of years ago in the big parking lot that used to be right across from City College. And I went over there with the boys. It was so much fun. These cars are incredible. Go and check that out. It's a lot of fun. It really,
It
really
absolutely is. Also, thank you to Alomar Marina, alomarmarina.net. They're open Wednesday through Sunday, 5999 Garden Highway. Go get the shrimp tacos. Float while you dine on the Sacramento River. AlomarMarina.net. Alomar Marina is a great sponsor of the Krug Show. And also thank you to Novato Chevrolet. When I buy a Chevrolet, I go see David Corral and the good people at Novato Chevrolet, family-owned dealership for over 50 years, rated top car dealership by Carfax, and also your Bay Area EV headquarters. As I said, go see David Corral. He will give you a screaming deal. All right.
Before we get into these supers here, Larry, let me just ask you about Brandon Aiyuk. Because here's a guy who is just sending so many mixed messages to everybody. He is his own worst enemy. And I don't know what is wrong with the guy. I don't know why he has been so corrupted in his own mind with who he is, that, the NFL is going to stop and wait for him in any way, shape, or form. I don't get it. And along with us not getting it, the outside observers, like everyone's collectively looking in at this situation and going, what is this guy doing? Why is he behaving like this? His inner circle is now basically saying the same thing. His TJ Hushmanzada, who has been on team Brandon Aiyuk since Brandon Aiyuk was in college, has coached him. Yeah, he's saying basically, I don't know what where is the there to this guy's career? What is he trying to do? He doesn't understand it. He became someone who would call Hushmanzada for advice and mentorship and doesn't even pick up the phone now. There is a rumor that his agent is going to or is about to drop him, for goodness sakes. Now, agents don't drop players they think have bright futures or careers. They drop players who they think being associated with this player will damage my reputation. And if that's really what Aiyuk has become, he has become toxic to his own inner circle and his own team. What the hell? Who is going to want that? What NFL team, Commanders included, is going to sit around thinking, yeah, he's the missing link. Let's go invest in him?
Well, I mean, first of all, yes, the Commanders will invest in him because it's the league minimum. So that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about any kind of investment. We're talking about a 1-year prove-it deal for, it probably won't be the minimum, but it will probably be close. And if you ask me what I think he's done. I think he's done. I don't think he's going to play anymore. I think he's done playing. If he's too narcissistic to not put out images of himself looking good. He actually has a vested interest in putting out those images right now, because if he put out images of himself looking good on a football field that were post-surgery, that would spur interest, which would make people want to get into a bidding war for him, and then he would get more money. So the fact that he's not putting any images out there, to me, means that there are no images to be had, and that he's not ready to come back. He's not the player that he was. He was a crushing, devastating, injury, and I don't know if people realize that, but if you go back and look at it, it was a catastrophic injury. John Lynch described it as a catastrophic injury, and I think he's done. I think he's done. Now, we do have Shasky was on a show here, and Coach Yak put this out. We'll play this little soundbite. This is Joe Shasky talking a little bit on the Grant and Danny show, whatever that is. But here it is.
Commanders. This is like a sports talk radio station in D.C.
Here it is.
Joe Shasky with us here on Grant and Danny, breaking down Brandon Aiyuk and all things San Francisco. So, Joe, here's the point that I made. And some people have said, you guys, you don't know his story, right, with Aiyuk. And I'm going, okay, let's say there is another side. They've had ample opportunity to get any kind of positive PR out for him. It's been, as you said, a year and a half. Like any a contract person, some dude you slides into your DMs on Twitter could say, hey, we need to tell your story here a little bit, and it's not out there. The NFLPA comes in and goes, you want us to get your money back? And he's like, nah, because you can't, because they know he violated every term of his deal.
Exactly.
Where is his story, if there is one? I'm willing to listen, but San Francisco has had all the headlines, Lynch, Shanahan, wherever they wanted to get out, they could. Where is his advocate or his story trying to tell his side of it where it doesn't make him look terrible? That's my big takeaway, my big question.
It's the best question there is. We have interviewed TJ Houshmandzadeh since the whole contract thing before they signed him. That was one of his closest confidants. He works out with him. He's his wide receiver coach. TJ Houshmandzadeh has basically Pontius Pilate in him from the situation. He wants nothing to do with Brandon Aiyuk. The rumor is the agent dropped him. The agent just dropped Brandon Aiyuk. You tell me why that is. I don't know. I mean, if you still think you can make a lot of money off somebody, no matter how, maybe outside the box they might be mentally, you're going to stick with them. This is an unknown thing. How anyone could have a feel for this is beyond me. But I do know this. Those that were closest to him have distanced themselves from him. Does that mean that he does have a story? He might. He might have a story. I want to hear it. I really do. Because Shanahan fought for this guy to get the money. He nixed multiple trades before they ended up eventually signing him. And it felt like, to me, almost like in a corporation, when you know you want to fire someone, they were documenting every missed practice, missed film session, missed rehab assignment. And that's how you build a case when you're dealing with a players union and you want to take their money away. You have got to have everything documented. So for them to not fight it, which you referenced, the players union, tells me he has no leg to stand on, and they were going to lose that battle.
Look, by the way, look at Butcher getting 2 shout-outs on the show. I had not seen that or heard that. That is my radio son right there. We think the same way. We basically said the exact same thing. I never even heard that. Again, players don't have agents give up on them who have careers in front of them. They really don't. It's such a weird situation, and it is a shame because he was, by all accounts, a really good football player and a good teammate right up until he decided, I'm not going to be either of those anymore.
Well, I mean, it was a devastating injury. And, I have no sources, right? It's not like I know Brandon and, I've interviewed him and talked to him before, and but I have no inside word on this, and I'm not pretending that I do, but I'm just going to tell you what I think happened here. What I think happened here is that the Niners were really torn in their organization. There were some people that wanted to sign him, some people that didn't. Kyle has the final say, as we saw in the draft and everything else, and he gets what he wants. So he pushed in the 11th hour for his guy, and because he gets what he wants, he got him. And then there was an instant remorse, and I don't think Brandon thought he was coming back. And I think that he thought he was gone. I think emotionally he was gone. I think, that the old saying, it's like, hey, man, emotionally I've already left. Well, right. Emotionally, I think he had already left. And so when he came back, there was very little warmth in even the signing day of the contract between him and Lynch and him and the Niners. It just looked like they grudgingly brought him back. And then he's got the issue with the shorts and Shanahan singling him out and yelling at him at practice. And he seemed like he's got this brooding bad attitude suddenly. And it's like, dude, we paid you and you've got this bad attitude. Then he gets hurt in the Kansas City game. And it wasn't just an ordinary injury. It was a totally devastating, career-altering type injury.
If you had buyer's remorse when he was healthy, when he becomes a totally sunk cost because he's injured, now everybody is pissed off that you bought that.
I think he is sensitive, and I think he felt the you don't want me before that, and then he really felt the you don't want me after that, and just saw that basically he was dead to them. In their eyes, he was dead. He couldn't help them anymore. He was a lost cause. He was a bad investment, all this. And I think he also didn't take on his, some guys attack their rehabilitation with everything they got. I don't think he did. And so I don't think, if you don't rehabilitate crushing injuries, you're not going to get back to the top level of pro football that you were at. And I don't think he rehabilitated it with a vengeance and everything he had. And, I think he knows the Niners didn't want him. And then he was like, hey, wait a second. They want me to go on the field. Well, guess what? Guess what an athlete fears? if he wants to go somewhere else. I'm going to go out on the field, and then everybody's going to see my frailties. Everybody's going to see that I'm not what I was. And then I'm going to lose equity immediately. So I'm not going on the field. Right when the Niners expected him to go back out onto the field and give it a try to come back, he didn't. He, at that point, chose to abandon them, leave, go AWOL, go under. Nobody could reach him. And I think he did that because he knew that he was diminished and he couldn't face the reality of it. And so that's what led him to this path. Then he started violating his contract because he knew he was done in San Francisco, that he didn't want to play for them anymore because he knew they didn't want him anymore. And the whole thing has just been, let me move on.
Right.
But I don't think he's done the rehabilitation. So I don't think he's necessarily ready to move on. So I don't think he's got a lot of value to the Commanders. The Commanders are not going to trade for him because there is no value and you're going to inherit that contract. So now it's just a big waiting contest. And I think the Niners are going to hold him until the cut down of the 53-man roster in August. And then they're going to try to flip. I'll stay with my original thought. I think the Commanders are going to wind up cutting McCaffrey's brother, or on the verge of cutting him. And I think they'll flip-flop him. I think they'll flip. I think he'll be a Commander in September. But I also think, Damon, he's going to start his rehabilitation in earnest. And I think he's going to need another half year or more, maybe a full year, to get right. And I don't think we're going to actually see Brandon Aiyuk substantially performing on the football field in a Commander's uniform until the 2027 season.
I mean, it's hard to step away from this league for 2 years and come back and find yourself in it again. It really is. All I know is I remember when Matt Mayoko said, Brandon Aiyuk might be ready for the season opener. And I thought, get out of here. There's just no way. And then I remember
that one was crazy. That was crazy.
That was bad. It was October 2nd when they were in LA, when Mac Jones beat the Rams in overtime at SoFi Stadium. I remember in the pregame, there was footage of Brandon Aiyuk running before, and everyone's like, oh, Brandon Aiyuk might be back in a couple weeks, might be back. And that was like the last thing we saw of him on a football field.
He was testing it, by the way. I practiced throughout the spring and summer. He was testing it. So, like, for example, they'd be doing a drill, right? And the receivers are just doing their little shimmy drill, and before practice, and they're gonna, just warming it up a little bit. Well, when they would be done with the drills, and then the receivers were gonna go run to a different part of the field, Brandon oftentimes would sprint as hard as he could with them, kind of testing out, no cutting or anything, but just sprinting. And it looked like he was getting more confidence in the knee and was getting closer. But maybe there was a setback. Maybe that's my belief. My belief is he saw that he was going to be diminished and knew that that was going to be a bad thing to get on the field and look not like himself. And so he hasn't gotten on the field because he knows that as soon as he goes out there and as soon as shows that he's absolutely not the player that he was, he doesn't have the same equity in the game in any way.
He's afraid to be exposed. I do believe that. Last thing before we get to the Supers.
Yeah.
The defending Super Bowl champions and a prime division rival of the San Francisco 49ers are for sale. Now, there was a story that Mark Zuckerberg and Tim Cook could be considering buying the Seahawks. They have since both said that they are not going to get in line to buy the Seahawks. Steve Ballmer, who, of course, has a lot of ties up in Seattle with all the Microsoft billions that he made, he's a front runner in this conversation to maybe purchase the Seahawks. That would be interesting if that were to happen. Deep-pocketed owners do need to be feared in some way, shape, or form. But this is a chief rival of the 49ers that is for sale, Larry. Let me just ask you.
Yeah.
The Commanders 4 years ago were sold for $6 billion. I could see the Seahawks sale doubling that number. I could see the Seahawks being sold for anywhere between 10 and 12 billion dollars. And if the Seahawks are worth that, what are the Cowboys worth? What are the New York? The minute the Seahawks sell, If the Niners right now are worth like 8-9 billion, the 49ers are going to be worth $15 billion the day after the Seahawks sell for 10 or 12.
It's a weird situation. Obviously, Paul Allen died, and his heirs have to do what he required in his, in his will, which was to sell all of his assets and give the money to charity. That's what they're in the process of doing. They're selling all of Paul Allen's assets, and they're going with the plan to give it all, if not all, much of it to charitable foundations. So that is an incredible thing. Usually it's the transference of wealth from generation to generation in your family. How many billionaires turn over their portfolio to just charity?
Look at it this way. The Allen family doesn't need a fraction of involvement for professional sports to be billionaires several times over.
Yeah, I mean, but supposedly they're going to sell all their assets. I don't know. We'll see. But I talked to Dave Softy Mahler about this, and this is what he asked, and this is what is going to happen, and it's they announced right after the Super Bowl that it's officially going in the market. I'm sure they'll get a great price, and heck, you saw what the Lakers went for, and I think we're now what good is the value of, if you owned an NFL franchise or a Major League Baseball franchise or an NBA franchise. The reason that you did that is you went from just a rich nobody to you became a somebody, but you also bought an asset that is increasing in value at an incredible rate, which is why people are fighting to try to buy these teams, because the growth is undeniable and it's exponential.
It's so one guaranteed can't go wrong. There is.
You want to turn 500 million into 5 billion. The best way to do it is to buy a percentage of an NFL team.
Without a doubt. The price will never come down. And there is somebody in the chat right now. Let me just see here. Where did I find? This is Julie says, 32 years, man. We ain't worth as much as we think. Julie, the Dallas Cowboys haven't won in forever. And they
won more recently than the Niners.
Yeah,
they won 95.
$13 billion. That's 1 year. Larry, they're 1 year
removed. And it's not about that. Come on, it's not about whether you win. I mean, the winning part is totally. I mean, that's kind of why part of the reason that people are like a little frustrated with Jed. It's like, does the winning really matter to you? Does the winning really matter when you're, wealthy beyond your wildest dreams and your asset is going up in value? You're investing in your sports portfolio is growing into soccer teams in multiple leagues. It's like, are you really all about the Super Bowl Sunday like Eddie D was? Or, what, would you just rather win?
Look at it this way. The Chicago Bears, and I can confirm this through a lifetime of suffering since 1985, have not won shit. They're the 7th most valuable franchise at $8.2 billion, and they've got stadium questions. The Raiders haven't won shit, $7.7 billion. The New York Jets, the walking, talking definition of cannot win, top 10 NFL valuation at $8 billion. It's market, it's media size, it's attention.
You want to know how valuable these NFL franchises are? Mark Davis is a hot girlfriend.
Let's get to the supers, Larry.
All right, let's go.
That's a walk-off line right there.
David Esger, Larry, I never heard you discuss Stribling. Why did you keep him a secret? First of all, maybe you're only watching this show.
He's joking.
Chase Sr. and I went into a pretty long conversation about Stribling, and I believe it's out there. I think many were surprised by the pick, but upset with the black jump. What's that mean?
I don't know. I think he means trading back. And it means like trading back and then still reach.
Stribling was not my favorite, but yeah, Stribling came up when we did a stream, and I think it was entitled Sleepers for the Draft, and tons of people. Now, I did not bring up Stribling. The smarter audience members brought up Stribling, but it wasn't one. It was like several. So, there was definitely a groundswell of sleeper vibes around Stribling, and especially after he had the great playoff. He had a great playoff. He really did. He was probably one of the best receivers in the playoffs. Lick Scorpion says, "Morning, Larry, Damon. What is that little
Oh, coffee cup. Good morning.
Oh, coffee cup. You guys got to watch David Lombardi's last video about the mock draft and how it's a crapshoot, but explains X's and O's and why. All right.
Well,
By the way, I just traded a
discuss
text last night with Dave. Congratulations to Dave and his wife Margot. They have a brand new baby girl. I told Dave, I said, Dave, you're gonna love being a girl dad. I have 4 children. I openly, like a fucking idiot, rooted for a son, my first child, and got a daughter, and realized what a stupid fool I was for rooting for a son. And there's nothing about being a girl's dad that is not incredible. And I said to Dave, Dave, it's a big responsibility because when you're a girl's dad, you know, that girl's gonna grow up. She's gonna look for traits that you possess in her mate. And so it's really an important responsibility. And so anyway, congratulations to Dave. He's gonna be a great dad. I'm sure Margot and him are gonna be wonderful parents. And if anything,
I did not know this. Is this his first child?
It is.
Well, congratulations to the Lombardis. And Dave has one job now. You take care of mom. Mom takes care of the newborn.
Exactly. And it's just nothing's a blessing like a new baby. Fuji Simeon, June 1st can't come soon enough with the Aiyuk situation. Yeah, you know what?
Look, you can cut him today and put a June 1st designation on him. You don't actually have to wait to June to do it.
They're not going to, and I don't think it's going to happen on June 1st. I think they're going to hold him out until cut down. I think this thing is going. I think they're going to drive this thing all the way into the cut down. I really do. Joseph Ernberg, Stribling will be the offensive rookie of the year, and Black will have 1,150 yards. Ernberg,
wow,
that's Ernberg. News. Ernberg's doing some heavy lifting at the new gym. Miss you at the old place, Ernberg. And Garibay. Why do they always go wide receiver, running back, defensive tackle early in drafts? Obviously, because they still have needs at those spots for not drafting the right guy at those spots. Yeah. I mean, if there's one thing that the Niners have absolutely done consistently throughout this regime, redrafting.
Yeah.
Go look at it. It's right there. You can go look at the draft picks, look at who failed, and then look at the next draft. You know, yes, you got to. And this is just the way of the world, right? This is no different than any company. You know, they keep hiring salespeople at my company, and when they're all tired up and they don't sell, they go find new salespeople. Yeah, because they got to keep selling, right? And the Niners got to keep playing, so they're going to keep going for new players.
In 2024, they drafted 2 wide receivers and a running back. Aside from a couple good games out of Ricky Pearsall, no one's made a blip. In 2005, they reached for a wide receiver and a running back who we still do not know if they can even play in this league. And then it looks like to a lot of people that they just reached once again for a wide receiver and a running back. So,
I understand that. I do understand that reasoning. I will say this, though, and maybe this is the fan side of me. I am irate at their ridiculous drafting in that 4 draft span. But I'm also very still encouraged by the guys they just drafted. Does that mean I'm a blind fan? Does that mean I have blind loyalty? Or does that mean I have hope for the present? And, it's like I have hope that the Niners will turn it around. I want John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan to be the regime that climbs to the mountaintop, that gets the extensions, that wins the Super Bowl, that has the ability to say, hey, we're going to stay here as long as we want. I would love it if those guys were successful. If I could take all the talent that I have, put it in their area and say, hey, help these guys do what they can, help them win, I would do it. If I could somehow help them win, I would try to help them win.
Right. I would much rather.
I don't want to see them fired.
I would much rather Shanahan and Lynch win it all than have to be flushed to find the next 2 guys to win it all.
Yes. And I think, Damon, you and I are not the only ones who feel that way. I think there's lots and lots of Niner fans who are in this chat, who are in this stream right now, who feel exactly the same way. They like Shanahan. They like Lynch. They want to go forward with this regime. They don't want to tear the whole thing down and risk that Jed finds the right combo again. They want to, but you know what? what they really need to do is everybody needs to check their ego at the door, do what they're best at, go get that nerdy draft guru, and let's listen to him. Let's listen to him, and then let's win championships and have parades. And then guess what? We all go to the bank together. If you add some little nerdy junior, some awesome scout, Eagles just fired the Eagles, Howie Roseman's assistant just resigned. Okay, let's just say he was a genius. I don't know that he is. He might be a fool. Let's say he's a genius and he was the key to. Nobody's going to care or know if you added some little internal piece to your puzzle that helped you get over the top, and get that Super Bowl. But people are going to remember if you don't get there. And if you don't get there, that's going to be your legacy. And you're 10 years in. Andy Reid was given 13 years in Kansas City. These guys cannot have that much more time. They got to have it.
13 years in Philadelphia, 13 years in Philly.
Excuse me. Yeah, Philadelphia, you're right. I would say Lynch and Shanahan don't have forever. I would say they have at least 5 more years, but they don't have forever. So let's get it right. Let's get everybody in their proper role. Let's win the championship. If the Niners drafted even 25% better than they do, they would have won multiple rings by now under Shanahan. I believe that.
If the Niners drafted better, would it close the gap on needing Shanahan's brilliance as a head coach? So this is the debate that I have. Yeah. This is the debate that I have. I can cook a steak so well on my grill that I can go choice instead of prime. While you need that prime steak to be fantastic, I am such a good cook that I think I can get better steak out of my choice cut than most people can from their prime cut.
Look at you. Look at the ego on you.
Oh, I will out grill everybody.
Nobody grills like this. Yeah.
No, wait, let me say, can I say something though? You and I met for lunch yesterday at Pickle, and I had the single best Reuben I have ever had in my life with smoked pastrami. Apparently, Damon, Damon and Mary, Damon Seabrook,
Stainbrook, yeah,
Stainbrook. Pardon me. He made love to this pastrami in a way that I was unfamiliar with. This was so delicious.
You actually gave me a bite of it. It was amazing.
I took one bite and I said, Larry, try this.
Dude, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was pastrami on
smoked pastrami on the perfect rye bread.
Perfect rye bread toasted with
sauerkraut, Swiss cheese, and their Thousand Island sauce, whatever the sauce was. It's
amazing. It was one of the best. It was the best Reuben I think I've ever had.
I'm a filthy Reuben slut. I am an Eggs Benedict slut. If it's on the menu, I'm taking it home with me. If I see Eggs Benedict, I'm ordering it. If I
to get a side of Béarnaise sauce or whatever.
I am ordering the Reuben 10 out of 10 times if it's on your menu. They told me, they're like, we normally only serve it on Wednesdays, but we were up there on Thursday. They said they had extra pastrami left over, and if I wanted a Reuben, they could do me a Reuben. Oh. Best Reuben I've ever had.
Dude, it was unbelievable.
I've had them all. Yeah, of all the women I've had, and I've had them all.
She had them all. This Reuben was the best Reuben. Oh. David, it was spectacular. David Esger says, "Oh, it's Shanny, all right. Give him credit for taking responsibility with Eisen. No mystery who is running the early rounds of the draft now." Yeah, of course, it's Shanahan. This is the Shanahan show. And you know what? I think Shanahan is one of the greatest coaches in the NFL today, without a doubt. But he also needs a great personnel guy. Shanahan with an awesome personnel guy would rule the fucking football world. That's the truth. Jerry Martin says, I think this draft class will greatly improve the 49ers. I think Stribling and Purdy will be a deadly combination.
I certainly hope so.
I think Purdy's going to be good.
I did a video yesterday how I think Brock is about to have the best year of his career, and he's going to have more talent around him game one in Australia than he's ever had at any point in time in his career, and that includes George Kittle not even being there. Once George Kittle, if he's able to rejoin the conversation this year, look the fuck out for this 49ers offense. The only missing ingredient that could, I think, throw it off course is health.
They've added a lot of speed. They've added a ton of speed at wide receiver. They've added a lot of depth on their defensive line. They've added some offensive linemen long term, but nobody short term. But I think speed-wise, you're going to see a big difference. David Esger, it's an easy fix. Obviously, the highlight reel approach isn't working. I would say, yeah, I mean, I guess that's one way to say it, the highlight reel. I have no problem with Shanahan's approach. All I would say is Kyle needs that guy who he believes enough in that would talk him off of his Dante Pettis's, of his CJ Beathard's. But then I don't know that there's anybody who has the football gravitas there to do it. It almost is going to take what I'd love to see is the Niners go get a big time, a McLuhan, a John Dorsey, somebody who's done it before, who's like a veteran, who has a totally independent view, maybe some independent wealth, and can just be like, you know what, this is what I think, for better or for worse. Yeah, I'd love to see it. They got to change something up. They got to change something up.
And look, there's no doubt you can't tell Kyle shit, right? I mean, the buck stops him. Yeah. He doesn't want to hear anything. And there's an awful lot of a reason why he should feel that way. I mean, there is a highlight of Shanahan calling a play in the red zone when he was the Commanders' offensive coordinator, and there was a question. The head coach questioned the call that Shanahan put in, and then touchdown, Commanders. Shanahan glared Jay Gruden in a way that just you could see the fuck you, don't ever question a single call I put into this offense ever again.
I think Shanahan's a brilliant offensive mind. I think he's a really, really good coach, but I think his blind spot is that he's, Bill Belichick is a great coach. Is he a great personnel guy? No. Bill Walsh was a great coach, and he had good personnel chops, but he wasn't perfect personnel-wise. Same with Mike Holmgren. Same with Jimmy Johnson was probably the guy who had the best personnel. As far as great coach who also had great eye for talent, it was Jimmy. But Jimmy, according to the people that I talked to, knew the Dallas situation and knew the Hurricane situation, said that he really leaned on other people in his circle. So no question, though. The Niners have a great coach. They need that awesome Howie Roseman. If they could find it, man, they would win championships. Claudaddy Arcade says, I'm frustrated with the process, not the players, i.e. allowing staff to dictate picks. For example, Boyer loved Junior Bergen, spent the 7th on him when we could have snagged day one contributor Monangi or Krosky Merritt. Exactly. It's like, why didn't you take? There was obvious running backs of note. I was screaming for Kyle Monangi for the draft, months before the draft. Heck, I circled on him in January. When I saw his film at Rutgers, I was like, oh my God, it's on my Twitter handle, timeline. You can see it. And yet you could listen to your special teams coach because his son was on the same team at Montana fucking State.
Right. The equivalent of we were at summer camp together.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. Seriously. I mean, it's just like, and why? Why would you listen that much to your special teams coach? Why would you make once again, it's this let's delude ourselves into thinking we have no needs. Football is like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. Okay. The Golden Gate Bridge is painted from one side to the other. And when they get to the other side, guess what they do? They go back to the beginning and they do it again. They're always painting the bridge. Why? Because the salt air eats the paint off. So they're always painting it. You should always be building in football. You've never arrived. You're never deep enough to take a kicker in the 3rd round. You're never deep enough to take a kicker in the 4th round. If you think you are, punch yourself in the face and say, no, you're wrong. You're never that deep. You always need more meat and potatoes. Every time you think you need, a decorative mailbox, go get more, put another, pillar on your roof or something. I mean, you need foundation pieces and you're shopping for lamps and antiques. I mean, it's to say it doesn't make sense.
Well, what's the old, Winston Churchill quote? It's, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. You just got to keep going. You just keep going. You keep going. You just constantly keep going.
Never heard that quote. That's a great one. James Foster says Kinlaw, Moody, Drake Jackson are all on the Commanders with Adam Peters. What does that mean? It means he liked them. He liked those guys. So maybe Peters is the guy who wanted Moody. Okay, maybe we'll frame him either way, but he liked those guys. Scott WD says Lynch made the CMC trade happen, but Larry never gives him credit. I always give him credit. Are you kidding me? I'm the one who brought that up.
He's made He's made two of the best trades in the history of the franchise, in Christian McCaffrey and Trent Williams. Period.
Yeah, Scott. I mean, who's been backing? I basically have said that I did a video on this the other day. Lynch deserves credit for the CMC trade. Lynch deserves credit for the Trent Williams trade. I banged on Warren Sharp because he didn't mention that, and those are, he mentions those trades, but he mentions them like they were like, yeah, they're like, it was like, oh, by the way, or like those trades made themselves. No, I'm giving Lynch the credit that he deserves. And I'm not even saying that he's making the wrong picks. I'm saying that he's not making the picks. I'm saying the old line coaches and some coaches are great at picking and some coaches are shitty at it. And it's like, you got to figure out. Ray Rhodes was great at picking DBs. Bob McKittrick was great at finding offensive linemen. But not every coach can. But don't tell me that I was ripping Lynch. I wasn't ripping Lynch. And I've given him plenty of credit. Joseph Ernberg, the Niners are the BK of the NFL. Wow. Thank you. David Esger, is Black faster than McCaffrey? No. He might be today, but he wasn't as at the same point coming out. Now we got the guy. Don't rip Damon. Come on.
No, but wait a minute. Go back. I'm not afraid. Not afraid of anything.
Slow Civic Garage.
There's an asterisk there. So we don't even know what he means. There's an asterisk there. So what does that mean?
Now that is funny. Fuji Simeon says, what's your super early record prediction for the Niners? I mean, I would say 9-8. They're 9-8, 10-7.
10-win team.
You know, I mean, it's in that neighborhood, 9-10 wins. You know, I don't like doing that basically until we find out, like, you know, what the team looks like. I'll make that prediction, but I'll make that prediction this summer. Fuji says, I will need lots of 49er content from you two this summer off season to cope with all the other terrible Bay Area sports teams and news. What, you don't like the Giants yesterday, that doubleheader? Oh, my God.
Did you see the way they gave both those games away? Oh, man. I mean, a bullpen that's actually been good for them just gave it up in both of those games.
Seriously, I came home from lunch with you and I would turn that thing on. I was like, oh, my God.
I'm telling you, man, right now, dude, it's you know, you can talk about it's never just one or two guys. For this team, it is. Willie Adames and Devers both stink, and Matt Chapman hasn't been that much better.
You know, once again, you know, I hate to say it, and this is going to come across as a rip on John Lynch, but guess what? You know, these Hall of Fame players, they're not necessarily great executives, are they? Is Elliott Wolf a Hall of Fame player? No, but he's his Patriots somehow turned it around from 3-14 and went to the Super Bowl a year later. He's like 5'3" and benches 65 pounds. You know, is Howie Roseman breaking down in space and tackling anybody? No. Why? Because these are different skill sets. So it's interesting. It's like, yeah, you've got maybe all these Hall of Famers, maybe Buster, but maybe Buster should just be like the face of the franchise. Maybe John should just be the face of the franchise. Maybe Buster should have some genius scout. Maybe John should have some genius scout.
Maybe Mike Dunleavy should just move out of the Bay Area. He wasn't a good player or a GM.
Yeah. Mike Dunleavy is literally a shield for Joe and his kids. He should be called the human shield. Fuji Simeon, sorry, Larry, I haven't been around. Been busy at work for my SI Wildcat alumni boss. Congrats, Larry. SI beat Reardon in total D1 sports signings. All sports signings. SI does get a lot of good players, by the way, but Reardon's always had great athletes, and they always will. Ian Sharp, no interest in Mac Jones was weird.
I mean, I think there might have been interest, but the asking price was reported to be exorbitant. Yeah. And at the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan knows you don't need just one quarterback. You need two. And I think Shanahan in his mind thinks I legitimately have two starting quarterbacks on this team. And that is a luxury that most teams do not afford to themselves.
Smartest move they made all offseason was not trading Mac Jones. Why? Because Mac Jones would have fetched them a 3rd-round pick, maybe a high 2nd-round pick. And who knows if they would have picked a player there that could have helped them. Mac Jones went 5-3 in 8 games and looked damn good. And in the last game that he started with the Niners, you can look it up, I could have swore he completed 85% of his passes. I think Kyle Shanahan loves Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones was made to play for Kyle Shanahan. If the Niners ever get rid of Mac Jones, I'll to some degree I'll be surprised.
I think if Mac Jones had been the draft pick over Trey Lance, you never even meet Brock Purdy.
They don't make that pick. They don't make that, or they do make that pick, but Mac Jones has still got his hands on the starting job and Brock's still in the background, which is possible. Thomas Selman says, I like the class. Tired of people harping on reaches. Almost half the first round passed on downs. LOL. It was not a deep draft. I love Stribling. Yeah, the reach angle on the thing was going to happen as soon as Kalen Black got drafted because he was a running back. And I saw the way people reacted to me anytime I suggested, in not just him, when I said, hey, they ought to get this guy to Arkansas in the 3rd round. Krug. When I get this guy, Krug, no 3rd-round running backs. There were so many Niner fans have such scars over the past 3rd-round running backs that as soon as the Black pick was made, everybody decided that the reaches were out of hand. They did reach. That's not the issue. The issue is the track record has not been good, and it's come home to roost. It's come home to roost. And if it hasn't come home to roost, because their standards have been lowered, and it should be coming home to roost.
Look, I don't mean to sound like George Zimmerman, but you're going to like Kalen Black. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Fuji says, Damon, will there be brisket content this summer?
I mean, we always do at least one brisket over the summer. So, yes, at some point we will get brisket content. Thank you for asking, Fuji.
Do you like the lean side or the marbled side?
Oh no, I want fat on my brisket. That's
really?
I want the fat part.
The lean part though, if it can be very, very good, especially on a sandwich. Blood Moon says Howie has missed on 22 players since 2020 through 2025. We'll have to look it up, but he also's got a ring.
Yeah, and you win a Super Bowl, and no one can question you.
Yeah. It's quite that simple. I hate to say it. It's like the ring is kind of like the ultimate trump card. Fuji Simeon says, if 49ers win a Super Bowl again, do they paint the Golden Gate Bridge in red and gold colors just once or light the Bay Bridge in red and gold lights just once? Haha. Probably neither.
City Hall will be red and gold. The Bay Bridge will be red and gold. The Golden Gate Bridge, she don't change her colors for no one.
Yeah, and it's kind of not red, right? Isn't it kind of like a red orange almost?
That's called the official name of the color of the Golden Gate Bridge is International Orange.
Oh, okay. There you go. Scuba Pat says, can we please petition for Brendel to be cut?
I don't want him to be cut. I want him to be tested. I want him to be challenged.
Yeah, seriously. I would love to just get he's remarkably durable. I'd love to see what somebody else in there would do. There's a lot of talk about Carver Willis being his replacement. And maybe he is the long-term replacement. I've actually heard people suggest that Brendel may get an extension. You know, I was a Coach Yak that we had on the other day who said he thinks Brendel's going to get an extension. Shane ER 2015. Mac Jones is the only above average backup behind the pillars. Every other backup is unknown or average at best. Draft greatness, not specifics.
It's the only, if we're giving out positional grades to every position on your team, the only A+ I think the Niners get is at the position of QB2. I do think they have the best backup quarterback in football.
I mean, they've got some good backups too. I mean, I like what they have at linebacker behind Fred. I mean, they've got some good young linebackers there. Fuji says Eagles assistant GM left the Eagles. Which team gets him? You know, that was an odd move. I don't know if he just tired of Sirianni, tired of Roseman, tired of Philly, tired of the profession. You know, who knows? That's going to do it for us. Damon.
One more late one just came in, Larry.
Okay.
Will Kamara outperform height? Well,
Wow.
if he makes the
I hope not.
team, there is a chance of that. I've got to be honest with you again. Call it my Indiana bias, if you will. I do know this, that everyone's looking at Romello Height as someone who can only play the pass. Kamara can do more than just only pass rush.
Yeah, I do think, Height is really interesting. He was 7th in the FBS with 62 pressures. And
I like him. I do like Romello Height, and we talked about him the show before the draft. So I'm glad that they picked him. I really am.
Kamara is going to be interesting. It's going to be about that shoulder. If he can keep that shoulder healthy, I think he's going to make the team. I will say this. I love Kamara because Kamara fills a role. He's going to be the last defensive end on the roster. If he makes it, he'll take Robert Beal's spot. And Robert Beal was really a special team stalwart. Well, guess what? Mikhail Kamara had a blocked punt in the Natty. He's very good on special teams, and he might impact what they do on special teams, which would be a great thing if the 49ers could get an impactful special teamer out of this thing. All right, that's going to do it for us. I'm going to stream in 3 minutes with Chase Sr. I've walked this stream into that stream.
Tell
David,
Chase I said hello. I'm always a big fan of his stuff. And I'm going to invite everyone who has had it with Niner discussions. I am going to be talking about a topic that I can't believe I haven't talked about it almost at all. This could be a goodbye for Steve Kerr. So I'm going to be talking at 11 a.m. West Coast time. I'm going to be doing a show and a live stream that starts with the topic of Steve Kerr. And if this is goodbye, what a ride. What a ride that was.
Yeah, and all the people that just were crapping on Kerr forever. It's like, you're gonna figure it out at some point. This guy's one of the best coaches.
You're the worst type of fan in the world. You're the worst type of fan. If you got a good riddance message for Steve Kerr, and that's all you have to say, you're the worst type of fan or content creator in the world.
Peace.